Okay guys, today we are learning how to make a pinch pot. We're also going to be connecting two pinch pots together because that's an important skill to make a hollow sphere. And so the first thing that you do is you take your clay that's ready. It's in a nice round ball. It's already been wedged. It's in good shape. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to separate this into two pieces so that I can get two pinch pots that are similar in size. So the way you do that is you take your fingers around it and you just squeeze it. So I'm going to squeeze this into two balls that are the same shape. So once I get a good squeeze on it, I'm going to just twist it and pull it apart so I have two different balls that are similar in size. One of them I'm going to put away to use later, so I'm slapping that with cupped hands into a sphere, and I'm going to put this in my bag so that it stays nice and damp. I always want to make sure putting that there. I always want to make sure that I have good moisture management. So slap, slap, turn, get this into a nice ball shape because we are going to make this into a pinch pot. And it's called a pinch pot because the motion that you do with your hands is a pinching motion with your fingers. Okay, so once you have a nice ball, it's looking good, your clay is well hydrated and good shape, the first thing I'm going to do is make an opening. So I'm going to jam my finger in the middle to make an opening like that. Now, right away, you're going to find out that if you have long fingernails, that's kind of inconvenient. So that is something you may want to look at, like trimming nails, keeping them really short. So once I have that opening, I'm going to stick my thumb in there and I'm going to gently push my thumb towards my fingers. I'm going to rotate, okay? So pinch towards my fingers and rotate. Pinch, rotate. And so as I do that, it's going to open up the center of that clay so I can start making a little pinch pot. Now you're going to get a lot of finger marks around the outside. Don't worry about that. We can smooth those out later. So pinch, turn, pinch, turn, pinch, turn is kind of the way we go. And so I will alternate hands so that I can get it nice and even. And then once it's open enough, I put both thumbs in there and I kind of pinch and rotate towards my fingers. And the goal is to have even thickness walls, bottom, sides, all the way down, and a nice even lip on your pinch pot. So pinch, rotate, pinch, rotate, pinch, rotate. Now, you'll get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I'm now ready to start dealing with my lip of my pinch pot. Okay, and so once you do that, you kind of set it down and keep doing the pinch, rotate, pinch, rotate, pinch, rotate, pinch, rotate. Okay. So then when I have that, I'm going to turn it and I'm going to support it from the inside, and I'm just going to use my thumb to start smoothing the outside. And this clay is very moist and plastic, which is nice. Okay, so I may just need to kind of pinch those out because we want to try and keep everything nice and tidy. So I'm always supporting it on the inside because if I don't, the clay is going to stretch and bend in that direction. Okay. You can also use a sponge for some of this, but you don't want to get it soggy. Okay. I'm going to smooth all my finger marks out. Very soft, very plastic clay that I have going on right now. Okay, so you're going to keep smoothing until you get your whole outside edge nice and even and tidy and perfect. Okay. So I have my pinch pot. Now I want to work on the lip. The easiest way to do that is put your fingers on both sides and push down. Okay, that is going to give me an even lip. It's going to control it. It's going to keep it from getting too thin, and it's also going to give it a nice flat plane. So you can see how that's getting flat versus this roundier side. So this is going to give your pinch pot a nice edge. And the other thing you can do is if you want to attach two pinch pots together, having this flat surface is going to make them easier to attach to each other. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do that a couple times so that it's nice and even and smooth. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm making sure not to smash the bottom because I want it to be round. In putting these two together, we don't have an even square if the bottom of it is flat, an even sphere. Okay, so I'm going to get that. I'm going to smooth it. okay? I may get in here with the rib and give it a nice even edge. So here's my rib, and that gives it an even flatter edge, right? So then I'm gonna go in tidy, tidy, tidy. So I'm smoothing out that edge. So I have a serviceable little pinch pot there. So now I made another pinch pot earlier, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect these to each other. The first thing I wanna do is make sure they're the same size as each other, which they're close, but they're not exactly right. This one's a little bit bigger. So the thing that I'm gonna do to make this one smaller is I'm gonna put it in my hands and I'm gonna squeeze it together. Squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn. And I can change the size and shape of my pinch pot really easily just by squeezing it. So now I'm gonna check it with this one. And now this one's a little bigger. Okay, so I can do the same thing with this guy. I can just squeeze it a little. So I'm only gonna do it a couple times. Okay, now I'm gonna compare them, because if they are not the right size, your connections don't work as well. Okay, that looks ready to go. Now I've already learned how to slip and score, so I'm gonna use the slip and score to connect these to each other. So I'm gonna go around with my needle tool, and I'm going to aggressively score down this pot on the lip, and same thing with the other one. Score it so that it's going to have a good connection. Okay, so I always like to cross hatch my scoring because I want a lot of surface area. I want these to really connect well to each other. Okay, so scoring those. And this is how we get them to attach. You need to score so that there's a lot of surface area. And then you need to use the slip, which is our glue for clay, so that they are actually secured together to each other. So I'm cross-hatching my scoring. So I always score both sides, and I always only slip one, because if you slip both, it gets really soggy and slobbery and damp. Score, 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 score. La, la, la. Okay. Okay, so now I have some beautiful creamy slip that I've made in the past that is ready to go. So it's right here. So I'm gonna get some of my slip, and I always just use my fingers so I can control the thickness and the placement. So I'm gonna wipe that slip on there, and then I'm gonna attach them to each other. And my slip is nice and creamy. Okay, it's thick enough to hold its shape. Okay, now I have two nicely made pinch pots. So before I pick these up to attach them to each other, I'm gonna take my sponge and make sure that my hands are relatively clean, because that's the tricky part with clay, is keeping everything clean. So I'm wiping my hands off. I'm gonna dry them on my apron, and then I'm gonna attach these together. Now, there needs to be some squeeze with the attachment. So I'm gonna get them lined up. There we go. Get it lined up. Now I'm going to squeeze them together super gently. Squeeze, squeeze. Now you have to be careful that it doesn't start turning into a football shape, but you do wanna squeeze it. Okay, so I'm gonna push, and then I'm gonna squeeze them together with my thumbs. Now, because this is a spear, you really can't support it from the inside while you're smoothing. And so I kind of start using my thumbs to smooth that seam. And if that seam is too open, I could put a little coil of extra clay right there. But I want to make sure that connection is strong while being gentle with the smoothing. So really light pressure here as I'm connecting these two pinch pots together. And being able to make a sphere is a super useful skill. So push, blend, and I'm gentle, 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 gentle. Clay likes calm, slow hands and a gentle touch. Okay. So, and I want no seam to show when I'm done. So I'm blending across almost like in an X pattern. And if I get a bunch of clay built up on my thumb, I'm gonna wipe it off with a sponge. And I'm gonna go around smoothing until I have no seam showing anywhere. So this is a super good skill for anything sculptural, for anything with a closed form, for hand building, ceramics. Everybody should know how to do this. Okay, once it starts really taking a nice round shape, then I can just hold it in one hand as I'm smoothing that. So making my X's, X, 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 and then smoothing. Okay. And once you see little wads that start building up, that's when you need to wipe off your thumb so that you are always using clean hands, because otherwise you get lots of little bits, and we don't want little bits, we want clean and beautiful. Okay, so you're gonna keep working that sphere until it's a perfectly round ball. Now, of course, whatever I'm making out of this will have to have an air vent, an opening, so that the air inside of this can escape, because otherwise it'll blow up in the kiln and nobody wants their beautiful work ruined. So once my connection becomes seamless, then I'm gonna rotate and start cleaning up the entire sphere so that it is beautiful and ready to turn into whatever shape I wanna make out of it. Now, once it's all ready to go, the easiest way to drill your hole to let the air out is to use a fettling knife, right? So I have a fettling knife. I'm gonna make sure it's got a clean blade, and I'm gonna use it just like a drill bit, okay? So I'm just gonna put it in here, and I'm gonna spin it until it's open. And the rule that I kind of think about for myself is that the opening needs to be about as big as the thickness of a standard size Sharpie, right? And so that hole's gonna be somewhere I can hide it, like on the bottom of the piece or tucked underneath an appendage or whatever, okay? But I also wanna make sure I'm not poking through to the other side. So once I get it big enough, I can just use my pinky to widen the hole so that I have my air vent and I don't have a clay bomb, okay? And so you can hear, it's got a nice hollow sound because it's empty in the middle, and I can use that to make a whole bunch of different cool things. Okay, that's a pinch pot and how to join 2 pinch pots.